Win a car with Radio Times. During the month of May, 5 new cars are being given away. Don't get left behind. Get on the road with the new issue of Radio Times.
On Friday, Omnibus returns to BBC1 for a new series. In the weeks to come, there'll be a report on the restoration of the Sistine Chapel ceiling, one of the art world's most important events this century.
My goodness.
And from the Renaissance to modern Rome, Federico Fellini, the great Italian film director, talks to Gavin Miller about his work, which includes films such as La Dolce Vita and 8½. There's a rare opportunity to see Bob Dylan at work in a documentary which follows the shooting of his new film, Hearts of Fire. And a dramatized biography about the extraordinary artist George GROSZ opens the series as part of the BBC's German Festival.
For 15 years, he bitterly attacked the leaders of Germany, the military, the lawyers, the war profiteers, the depraved and the debauched. He was Berlin's most savage political cartoonist. And yet the paradox of this man whose eye pierced and dissected all it saw was that he was a dreamer and a bourgeois at heart.
The life and work of George GROSZ in the first of a new series of Omnibus on Friday at 9:30 on BBC1.
And back to Wednesday evening now as we join Anne Robinson for more of your letters in Points of View.
Hello, good evening, and nothing complicated, you'll be pleased to hear, about the biggest subject of the week. It divides quite simply between those who have won with Beverly Hurst of West Horton
Snooker. Do you realise that I loathe the very mention of the above game?
and those in unison with Pamela Killenbank of Castle Hedingham.
Thank you for all the splendid coverage of my favourite indoor relaxation, watching snooker.
And then again,
I have considered selling the telly, leaving the country, and even suicide. Every time I pass the television shop in the high street, I suddenly develop a hysterical laugh, which gives the impression I'm mad, snooker loopy perhaps. For the sake of my sanity, please limit your coverage of the game. Otherwise, I'll go mad, along with all the other victims of the Michael Grade, if it's got balls in it, televise it syndrome.
from a viewer who signs off simply,
Yours concerned, from Camberwell.
on the other hand,
For sheer sartorial elegance and impeccable sportsmanship, commend me to snooker players. The restrained and quietly professional verbal comments of the commentators also add to the lustre of this fascinating game. Indeed, without the observations of the latter in all sports, sporting occasions would be poorer.
says Miss O'Seller of Thornbury, which is of course exactly the opposite to...
Does anyone realise what a miserable and depressing commentator Clive Everton is for snooker? He never praises good shots. All he seems to try and do is to bring the players down. Also, to top it all, he only uses their surname.
Thank you, Posnick Maureen of Peterborough. And another thing.
Between Saturday the 18th and Friday the 24th of April, we had to endure 6 hours on BBC One and, wait for it, 42 3/4 hours on BBC Two, almost 50 hours in 1 week. Surely there's no way even the BBC can justify this.
Oh, I don't know, Ross Forrest of Biggar.
I'm a snooker fan and like to follow up on the World Championships, but that's not possible because snooker is on during the day while I'm at school and at night about 11:10. Haven't the BBC considered young snooker fans?
Ask Jane Bamford, age 12, of Burton in Kendal, and Vanessa Forstyke of South East London isn't too pleased with the timings either.
I am fed up. Is it really necessary to have so much snooker late in the evening when it's been on all day? Steve Davis has often been quoted as saying he prefers snooker to sex. Well, judging by the amount of time my husband spends watching this silly game, so does he. Please, Anne, do have a word with the programme planners to at least limit this annual period of enforced celibacy. Yours in frustration.
And talking of the happily married, P. Sutton of Whitley Bay gushes...
Has no one written to Points of View to compliment the lovely girl chosen as Bride of the Year for the clothes show? She looked absolutely stunning and was so relaxed and natural.
Yes, but who was the Bride of the Year?
My old PE and games teacher won it, Miss Liz Sheldon. Miss Sheldon, oh, sorry, I forgot, Mrs. Barnes now, taught at my school, Bilbrook Middle, for 1.5 years. I was really pleased when I saw her. I thought her wedding dress was gorgeous. Please, could you show a clip of her?
Certainly, Alison Smith of Wolverhampton. For you and everybody else who's asked, here's Liz Sheldon that was on her first day as Mrs. Christopher Barnes. Let's hope her husband isn't a snooker fan. Of course, not everybody who goes on television can be dressed by the clothes show, as Jeanette Wilkes from Birmingham points out.
On Easter Sunday's Mastermind, there were two gentlemen, one wearing jeans and another in a lovely suit with a dicky bow. Could you please tell me whether the man in the dicky bow was wearing trainers? If he was, do you think it would have been more appropriate to have swapped shoes with the man wearing jeans?
Pass. Actually, it's a pity there isn't a contestant on Mastermind whose chosen subject is the future plans of the BBC. He or she could answer questions like this one from Murray Wilson of Ashford.
When are we going to see the return of that brilliant American series, Cover Up?
Or from Martin Ramsden of Gosport.
Could you please tell me if there's going to be any Marilyn Monroe season this year, the 25th anniversary of her death?
And from Elizabeth Greengrass of Norwich.
Is there any chance of Saturday Superstore coming back?
And again from 200 people who didn't give an address.
Whatever happened to the Clangers, Blue String Soup and the Soup Dragons?
And a letter with one signature, B. Marshall of Leyland.
A film I've never seen on TV and of which Kirk Douglas was the leading actor, The Epic Adventure of Ulysses. Can I expect to see it in the near future?
And two questions from Jane Porter of Kettering.
Blake 7 was first screened nearly 10 years ago, and the first two series, plus a lot of the third series, have never been repeated. Do the BBC ever listen to or watch their own programmes?
No. I mean, no plans, sorry, for Blake 7, or the Clangers, or Superstore, or a Marilyn Monroe series, and no one made a second series of Cover Up. And no again to Ulysses. Thank goodness for Shiva Kara, age 10 of Ashton-under-Lyme.
Could you please tell me what MASH means?
Yes, Shiva. It means Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. And from Craig Priestley of Stratford-on-Avon.
A big thank you is necessary to the BBC for reshowing the Victoria Wood series. Can you show the hilarious rendition of Let's Do It, which ended the first show? For all those who missed it, it may give them an insight into Victoria Wood's uniquely humorous writing.
Now, for a couple of viewers who don't think the BBC talks proper.
I really wonder where some of your reporters and broadcasters get their pronunciation of the following. Gorilla for guerrilla, roofs for roofs, etc. for etc., drawing for drawing. Is it too much to expect correct pronunciation of their own language? Yours truly, C. Charles Dunn.
And again?
For the sake of good English, could you please make it clear that according to every dictionary, the word adult is pronounced with the accent on the second syllable, and conversely that controversy and kilometre are accented on the first syllable. These words have no alternative pronunciation.
Huh?
Pronunciation.
Not many people know that, L.R. Walter of Winchelsea, East Sussex. And still on style.
The producers of EastEnders are obsessed with pet names in the programme. I assume it's to save time in writing. However, the situation is getting ridiculous with Debs, Tone, Cy, Ange, Kev, Shell, or whatever. Perhaps it is the scriptwriter's social conscience becoming manifest. Even one writer is listed in the credits as Bev. Mrs. D. Wilson, or should I say Di.
Now, a word or two about fishing.
Do we have to suffer a 10-minute discussion with a so-called personality in Hooked? Can't we leave this to Terry Wogan? What we want is more about fishing. This is not only my opinion, but also of many club individual anglers with whom I've discussed the programme. Yours sincerely, Fred Lee.
Who comes from Solihull, and from fishing to opera.
Nabucco, performed by the chorus and orchestra of Teatro alla Scala Milan, with the famous chorus of the Hebrew slaves, was absolutely superb. Needless to say, Italian opera sounds best when sung in Italian, preferably by Italians. And could the BBC have one opera per month for us Italian opera lovers? Donizetti, Bellini, Verdi, Puccini, Leoncavallo, to name but a few.
Writes Dr. De Silva of Coventry, who sounds a touch Italian himself. And another contented viewer is Paul Morley of Blackburn.
I have just watched the last in the series of Mediterranean cookery. What a wonderful series. Is there a book? Will it be repeated? Is the BBC planning a further series?
I agree, Mr. Morley. Claudia Rodin's Guide to Mediterranean Cookery was superb. There is a book, not surprisingly, it's become a bestseller. And sorry, no to another series. Now, did you notice anything like this tonight?
Please, could you tell me how in Dallas, as soon as they pick up the receiver to make a telephone call, they press or dial the numbers and then start talking straight away, not giving it time to connect? Yours, when I'm calling you, Mrs. A.M. Carey.
A mystery indeed, Mrs. Carey. Maybe they're not really making phone calls, only pretending. Finally, it's time to put someone out of his anguish.
On Points of View, they ask for letters. But what's the good of writing letters if they get ignored? Again, for the last time, I wrote praising Anne Robinson for the charming way she runs Points of View. All I asked was that on one programme, Anne just says, "Yes, Kenneth Wright from Blackburn, I got your letter," which would only have taken a few seconds.
Yes, Kenneth Wright from Blackburn, I got all your letters, and hundreds more from everyone else. They've even given me an electric letter opener to help. See you next week.
If you have any comments on BBC television programmes, please write to Points of View, BBC Television, London W12 8QT.